one of the most dangerous places on Earth. A place so desolate, so cold, so ruthlessly unforgiving, Mount K2, or better known as Savage Mountain, a place where the most experienced individuals are humbled, a place where every one out of 4 climbers that reach the summit will die. Mount K2 sits in the northwestern Karakoram Range. It is located in the Baltistan region of Gilgit-Baltistan, Pakistan. K2, or more suitably known as Savage Mountain, is a staggering height of 28,251 feet above sea level. For some perspective, Mount Everest is 29,029 feet above sea level, leaving a 778-foot difference between the two. The death rate between the two summits of K2 and Everest is significantly different. With 1 out of every 4 climbers on K2, 1 dies. On Everest, 1 out of every 20 climbers, 1 dies. Yet, Everest is the higher summit. Approximately 80 people have died on Mount K2 so far. Only 300 climbers have attempted to summit K2, while nearly 4,000 people have attempted Everest. Mount K2 is only climbable from June to August due to extreme weather conditions. The year is 2008. Climbers from all around the world have met up at base camp to tackle Mount K2. Teams from all over the world, South Korea, France, Pakistan, Serbia, Italy, as well as the Netherlands, and of course their Sherpas, came together for this grueling, challenging climb. The plan for this climb was to have small groups of people start climbing at different times to avoid any traffic jams on the route. A series of bad weather events and intense snowstorms would delay their climb. However, on August 1st, climbers from France, South Korea, Pakistan, Serbia, the US, the Netherlands, along with their high-altitude porters and Sherpas, making a total of 25 people, would start the first part of their climb. This group of vastly experienced climbers were off to a bit of a rough start. At the front of the group were 9 people. Their job was to break trail for everyone else, as well as set the ropes alongside for the climbers. However, the trail breaking group had a late start that day, and on top of that, they didn't bring enough rope to make it past the bottleneck part of the climb, the most dangerous part of the climb. A narrow, fierce, and rocky face of the mountain looming above the climbers sits a massive chunk of glacier ice, threatening to break off and fall on top of the climbers at any moment, a reason to not spend too much time underneath it. Due to the trail breaking group fixing too much rope at the beginning of the trail, they did not have enough for this part of the climb, leaving the climbers at a standstill. Climbers would start to head back down the mountain to collect some rope for the bottleneck portion of the trail. The time is 4 p.m. and Mount K2, or Savage Mountain, would claim its first victim from the group. Dren Mandic from Serbia would lose his footing along the edge and fall off the mountain. Other climbers from the group watched in horror as Mandic tumbled down the mountain and came to a rigid halt. Mandic would briefly stand up before collapsing. A few of his Serbian teammates descended to help him, but Mandic was dead. Jahan Beg, hired on by the French team, was a high-altitude porter. While attempting to help move Mandic's body, he would begin to act erratically from what looked like oxygen deprivation. Jahan would tragically slip and fall to his death. The remaining group of climbers made the decision to keep moving forward to the summit. It was then that K2 would claim its third victim. At 4:30 p.m., the first team of climbers arrived at the summit. One by one, they would celebrate their victory. The last team to reach the peak of K2 and start to descend was Marco Confortola from Italy and Ger McDonnell from Ireland. They would start descending at 7:30 p.m. Due to the late start of the day, they would be descending in the dark. At approximately 8:30 p.m., a group was making their way down through the bottleneck. While the group was descending in the dark, a ridge of ice would fall on them, leaving a Norwegian climber falling to his death. The falling ice completely cut through the rope that would be guiding the climbers down the mountain, bringing the group to yet again another standstill on the most dangerous part of the mountain. Rolf Bay, a Norwegian climber, would lose his footing and fall to his death as his wife, Cecilie Skog, along with her teammate Lars Flato Nessa, would watch hopelessly as Rolf plunged off of Mount K2. In a 2013 documentary, Everest summit leader Pat Falvey would say, there's an unwritten code that if someone is dying and you know that you will put your own life at risk, you should leave them." End quote. With no fixed lines to guide them off the mountain, Skog and Nessa would make their way down only using pickaxes and crampons to make it to Camp 4. Upon highly experienced climbers, there was also the less experienced. Some who relied heavily on the guides would find themselves entangled in the dislodged ropes, leaving them stranded, waiting for rescue. The team of South Korean climbers would find themselves trapped in the death zone section of the mountain. The people who are the most at risk are the ones that successfully make it to the summit. This is due to the prolonged period with lack of oxygen. Victory comes at a cost of possible hypoxia, leaving the body deprived of oxygen and cells beginning to die, causing extreme disorientation. Van Javel and Duobridi, two more experienced climbers, were also making their way down in the dark. As they were descending, Duobridi became sluggish and appeared almost intoxicated. Would ask Van de Vel to go ahead of him, which he did. A few moments later, he would look back and Duobridi would be gone. He too would fall to his death off Mount K2. On August 2nd, the sun would rise at Camp 4 and climbers would be counted. The decision was made to send 2 Sherpas back up to help the Koreans. The Koreans' team leader ordered the Sherpas to help them down the mountain and untangle the trapped climbers. At the same time, more Sherpas were making their way up the mountain to help as well. To make matters worse, shortly later, an avalanche exploded down the mountain. Mount K2 would claim another victim. Confortola and Gur McDonald were helping the entangled Koreans before the avalanche. Confortola believes to have seen the body of Gur McDonald being swept away in the avalanche, while others in the group believe it was Duarburid's high-altitude porter Karim Maharbin, whose body was never located. After spending a cold night in the death zone on Mount K2, Zrain and Pasain would reach the trapped and cold Korean climbers. Unfortunately, one of the Korean climbers was badly injured. For this reason, Tezreen would stay behind with him for the time being. The others would make their way down through the bottleneck. It was at this time that another piece of the glacier would break off, sending ice and snow down onto the climbers. Tezrin, who was still behind on the trail, would watch in horror as his cousin and brother fall off the mountain to their death. Several climbers would be rushed off the mountain via helicopter. Italian climber Marco Confortella and Dutch climber Wilco van Rooyen would suffer from severe frostbite and would lose some toes to Mount K2. Spending 2 full nights alone on Mount K2, Rooyen would begin hallucinating and recall seeing other climbers off in the distance and hearing voices, as well as snow blindness, signs that his body was reaching its limits. Some believed the disaster was due to unfulfilled promises. The Korean team also failed to bring supplies to Camp 4. In total, 11 climbers would lose their life over the course of one day on Mount K2. People questioned why no one would go back to rescue the missing climbers or recover their bodies. But really, the people asking this don't understand how dangerous Mount K2 is and how rescuers would greatly be putting their own lives at risk, only to add Mount K2 death toll, a mountain that comes in second for its height worldwide, fierce weather conditions, and dangerous terrain. Mount K2, dubbed Savage Mountain, remains one of the most dangerous places on Earth.